Hey everybody! In this month's Hero Arts kit video, I'm going to be showing you how to make ornaments out of the adorable little tag dies that are included in the kit. So I have several different kinds of ornaments for you today, and I also have a beautiful card with one of the add-ons, actually two of the add-ons. I love it so much. So here's the stamp set that comes with the kit. It has sentiments, and it also has patterns that you can fill in these different little die cuts with. So like the scarves, the hats, all that kind of stuff you can make striped or dotted with these fun background stamps. And then of course you can use them all year. Now this is what the little characters look like. There are several pieces to each character. They all have a little ornament hanger. I'm calling it an ornament hanger, but it's really for ribbon for a tag. But I will be using it for an ornament hanger. Now the face goes with all of the characters, so it can be for the reindeer, for the elf, for the Santa, and you're going to see that because I'm using those little faces for all of mine. So I'm using a pigment-based marker because I wanted a folk art style look to these. I wanted them to look like they were painted in that folk art style. So instead of using a transparent marker like a Copic, I'm using an opaque marker for these Deco brush markers. Now I do have a coupon code for these. You can get 15% off, so I will put that at the link below. And I'm also going to be having a class using these markers, so check that out on my blog. That class will be in November. So I'm coloring the face. These markers blend really beautifully with each other, and so you can blend on the paper, you can blend on different surfaces, and I'll be going over all that in the class. But I thought that I would give my little elf some cute little pink cheeks, and then I'm just going to blend them back into his face just a little bit with the original marker that I used, which is kind of a vanilla sort of color. So I will set that aside to dry. That is so cute. And now I will work on the hat. So you can see these little borders of the hat. There are a couple different ways that you can sort of keep from coloring that I'll show you in just a minute. And I'm using just a bright lime green for his little elf outfit. I don't even remember when I was a kid. Were elves always dressed in green? I guess they were. Maybe it's just a contrast with Santa because Santa is red. I think elves are a bigger deal in my adulthood than they were in my childhood. So I don't really have a strong memory of childhood elves. But this little guy is going to be green. Now I do like to go around the edges. Since I am making an ornament, I want the edges to look really finished and perfect and make sure that there's no white space showing. So this is how he's going to start to come together. And I will color his hat and then I'll mask off that bottom portion. And I'll mask off the top portion to stamp a pattern into that little border on his hat. So these cover so beautifully. I just love using these markers, and the fine, super fine brush tip means that I can get in all the little nooks and crannies. Now, when you want to color the edges, sometimes it's easier if you're just working on a scrap piece of paper just to sort of color along that edge. And a lot of times that will get the edge covered so you don't have any white space showing. These are very quick and easy to color. You can also, if you wanted to use colored cardstock, just cut the little pieces apart. They're just attached at one or two little places, so you could just as easily cut this out of green cardstock and then piece the little white rim and the little pom-pom back in. It's totally up to you, but there are a bunch of easy ways to use these dies, and you'll see them all in the inspiration hop today. So here's his little hat. He's going to be so cute. He's starting to shape up. Now, one tip when you are die cutting these, no matter what character you're using, be sure and hang on to the eyes because those are small pieces that, in my examples, I'll be piecing back in. Or if you wanted to die cut them in a different color, like you'll see on the felt ornament that I did today, these dies are great for felt, then you can do that. But hang on to those little pieces. Don't just let them fall on the floor and get lost forever, because it's really easy just to piece them back in. So I'm going to color his ears to match his skin. He's a little blonde-headed elf. Or yellow-headed, I guess. And then I'll just put a little bit more ink on his face. Kind of cover up that blush just a little bit more and make sure that he's totally covered with pigment. These dry pretty quickly, but I do like to set them aside for just a second to dry. So now I will work on the hat. Now, my friend Amy sent me this beautiful music paper, and so I put that onto cardstock with this fabulous glue stick. I finally found a glue stick that works, and I just used the Circle Infinity dies to get that done. So now I'm going to show you a super complicated way to do this. There's a much easier way that I'll show you in just a second. But I had Post-it notes sitting on my desk, and so I decided I was just going to be super ambitious and mask off the hat with Post-it notes. But you can just die cut another hat out of masking paper and then snip that little piece out and then cover up that portion of the hat instead of what I'm doing, which is tearing a Post-it note into a million pieces. And I will show you that when we go to do the rest of the hat, when I finally came to my senses and did something much easier. But I thought, these are simple shapes, just these little points. It'll be fine. But, it's one of those things that seems like a good idea at the time. And then you're like, what was I thinking? Really, what was I thinking? And it's not exactly a perfect little square, so I had to tear a little extra piece. So there we go. It's all covered up. Stick my magnet on there, and now we're ready to add a pattern. These two little patterns are so cute, and like I said, you can use them all year. It doesn't have to be for Christmas, but it's nice to have these little texture stamps in my collection. They'll also be good for just random textures on art journaling. Now I'm going to tip the stamp just a little bit, so I'm getting a diagonal candy stripe on the little, I don't know, what do you call that? It's not really a brim, but this little section of the hat. And then I will just stamp that in crimson ink a few times until I get the stripes the way that I like them. This is a great Christmas red if you're looking for a red for your holiday cards. This is kind of a cooler red, and I think it makes great little holiday cards. So once you've stamped it once, you can sort of see what area of the stamp you need to ink, which makes it a lot easier if you need to overstamp it. This is such a tiny little area that I do overstamp it. And if it looks like the stamp is getting ready to lift up your cardstock or whatever you're stamping, just slip a little palette knife or something in there to hold that down and keep it in place, just so that you can overstamp perfectly with the MISTI and you won't get a blurry image. So I will stamp that again 3 times, should be the charm. We'll see, but this is going to be so cute. Wait till you see this pattern. Hold that down just in case I didn't get a good impression. Ooh, this one's sticky. When they're new, how sticky they can be. So that is such a cute little candy stripe. I love that. I love that they varied the thickness of these lines. It makes for a more interesting candy stripe, I think. So now I'll take my 10,000 Post-it notes off here, and you'll see just how adorable this is. Look at that. Oh my gosh, so festive, so cute. So now I will pull this stamp off of here. I love the little polka dots. You'll see that I use the little polka dots several times, and one of the ways that I'm going to use them is on the hat itself. So what I did was I die cut another hat after I came to my senses, and I'm just snipping out the brim portion of that to mask off. Much smarter way to get this done. Think how long it would have taken me if I had a bunch of Post-it notes to do this part. Crazy. So don't be like me. Use your dies to do the masking. And then I will snip off the little teeny tiny little pom-pom on the end of his hat and mask that off as well. That one isn't quite as important because the next step that I'm doing, I'm actually using white ink, but just so that there's no stray ink anywhere, that's what I'll do. And now I will use the little polka dots. This is such a cute little stamp. I love polka dot stamps. Love, love, love. So now I'm going to put his little collar on here, and I'm going to position it so that I can get both pieces stamped in one fell swoop with this little background stamp because they both fit within that space. So now that came up. So I will just put that back on there, and then we will ink this up in white ink. I am going to use a little bit of temporary adhesive just so this doesn't go flying off during the stamping process. But when you're using pigment ink, it's much less likely to lift up your stamp image just because it coats that stamp in a way that dye ink doesn't. And so I feel a little more secure whenever I'm stamping with white ink. So now I have to adjust this just a tad to get that to stamp, and I will stamp that down. Nothing like a little tiny white polka dot, like a Swiss dot. Very cute. Very, very cute. So I'll stamp it again. Usually when I'm using pigment ink, I will dry before stamping a second time, but I have the feeling I'm only going to need twice. So there you have it. Look at that adorable little outfit for my elf. So cute. And don't worry, that white ink cleans right off that misty foam. Don't stress out, all you cleaners out there. And then I will put this little guy together. So see what I mean about keeping the eyes and the nose? You will want to piece those back in. So make sure that they don't get lost. And then I will use one of my little vintage music notes circles to put him together on. Now with the Santa, the little eyes and the nose, I was able to cut those in a different color of felt, and I just think they look so cute. Now you want to figure out where they go on the tag based on the ornament, based on the ornament hanger. So you want to position the head to where the ornament hanger, aka tag string loop, will be poking up above that little circle. So that's how I decided where to put his head in the scene. So now I will remove the masks and stick this little guy down. Now just keep those masks with your stamp sets and dies so that you can use them again. They last for a really long time. Look how cute that is with that candy stripe paper. Love it. Now I see a little area that I missed over here on the side of his head. So I'm going to make sure that that's covered up so that we don't have any white space sticking out. It's a lot more obvious on this vintage music paper that you would have white space. So I just want to make sure that I get all those details right. So now I will put his little hat on, but I can't forget his hair. How embarrassing would that be? So I'll put this together. He has like a little bit of a Spock thing happening with those pointy ears and that kind of funny haircut. So really, really cute. So now I can put his hat on. So take that into account too, where his hair is going to be. So you leave yourself enough room to have the little loop sticking out the top. So this is a piece of white cardstock with the music paper on top of it, so that it's going to be nice and sturdy for hanging on the tree. And on the felt ornament, I reinforced that as well. So you can see that over on my blog post, how I did that little ornament. So now I will tuck his little collar underneath his chin, press that down from the back side, and he is ready to hang on the tree almost. I just got to fill in his face details. So I saved all the little eyes and all the little noses just so that I could color them. So I'm going to color his nose pink, and then I will color both of his eyes black. And if you want to put little dots of white or whatever, you can embellish those however you want. They're small, but they're not so small that you can't put a little white dot on there. And then I'm just going to use my little crystal katana to stick that in the right spot. These are, it's obvious what goes where, and the eyes are exactly the same size. So that's very easy to piece those in. And then I will color his little eyes black. I have a little pile of eyes over here. It's very spooky, but that's what happens when you're making 3 little ornaments. So I'm sticking with the pigment markers here. They have a really nice black. This is another one that you really want to make sure there are no white edges. So I'm kind of going past and coloring around the edges on this because especially when you're coloring with dark colors, it's going to be very, very obvious if there's a little white gap. So before you go to glue it in, make sure you've looked at all of the sides of that to make sure that they're all perfectly black. So I'm going to dry these a little bit. I put a lot of ink on there because I was trying to cover up the edges. So I'll dry them a little bit just so that I don't smudge anything onto his adorable little face. So I will just put a dot of glue into the little opening for his eyes. That's how I like to do all my paper piecing. I put the glue on the paper, not try to fiddle with it on the back of a very tiny piece of paper because, you know, your dexterity isn't what it used to be. And this just works better for me. Now, after I finished these ornaments, after I did all of the little faces like this adorable little elf, I actually went around the edge with some precision glue and some glass glitter. So this is like a champagne colored glass glitter and it's just so cute. So there's the trio. Here's the felt version with Santa, and you can see how I reinforced it on my blog. And then here's the last ornament that I did with a little hand-painted poinsettia. And then this gorgeous fireplace scene is also on my blog. So head over to my blog for more information and a giveaway, and thanks so much for watching.